Verses for Bhagavad Gita. I still have some copies for part 1. If any of you haven't received the ones we have been... Can you pass it on? Hare Krishna. Let's offer our prayers to our predecessor acharyas as well as to Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada ki. Okay, these are a new set of verses covering chapter 7 till 12. Let's start. Sri Bhagavan Vacha Maya Sakta Manapartha Yogam Yunjan Madashrayah Asam Shayam Shamagram Mam Yata Jnasasi Mata Parataram Nanya Kinchidasti Gana iva yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajatante kalevaram tam tam eva iti kaunteya sadha tadbhava bhavitaha tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mamanushmara yudhyacha mai arpita mano buddhir mame vaishyasya shamshayaha Mahatmanastu mam partha daivim prakritimashritah bhajanti ananya manaso jnatva bhutadim avyayam ananyas chintayanto mam ejana paryupashate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham Yad karoshi yad ashnashi yad juhoshi dadasi yad tapasyasi kaunteya tat kurushva madarpanam Shipram bhavati dharmatma shashvachantim nigacchati kaunteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati Aham sarvasya prabhavo matha sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam bhuta bhava samanvitaha machitta madgata prana bodhayanta parasparam katayantascha mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te Tesham evanu kampartam aham ajnana jam tamaha nashayami atma bhavasto jnana dipena bhashvata Mat karma krin mat paramo mat bhakta sangavarjitaha nirvaira sarva bhuteshu yasa mameti pandava yetu sarvani karmani mai sanyasya mat paraha ananye naiva yogena mam dhyayanta upasate Tesamaham samudharta mrityu samsara sagarat bhavamina chirat partha maya veshita chetasham Mayeva mana adatsva, Mayi buddhim niveshaya, Nivashishyashi mayeva, Ata urdvam na samshayaha. Let's read the translation. Just fix your mind upon me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and engage all your intelligence in me. Thus you will live in me always, without a doubt. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Of part 2, how many of you didn't receive one? Yeah, please pass it. For those of you who are not in the mailing list, please do send me an email so I can add you. Even those who are attending in Mayapur TV. All right. Let's start our discussion on chapter 9, the most confidential knowledge. Usually, if you take any movies, you will see, you will see the climax of the movie is usually kept, or the conclusion of the movie is usually kept at the end. You take any movie or any novel, for example, any thriller novel could be, or any fictitious novel, you'll always see there'll be a storyline, and only towards the end you'll always see the most important part, what really happened. You would never come across a movie wherein you see the climax is let out in the very first reel of the movie itself, and then only the build-up is given after the climax. But interestingly, if you see how Krishna presents Bhagavad Gita, he gives the most confidential knowledge in the middle 6 chapters already. So then naturally that would raise a question, why are the last 6 chapters important? And if you see even Srimad Bhagavatam, you'll also see Krishna is the hero there. If you see the entire Srimad Bhagavatam, even as a novel or as a movie. But interestingly, the very first few chapters itself says that Krishna has already gone back to the spiritual world. He was not present. So Krishna already tells the climax in the very first shot itself. Nevertheless, still Bhagavatam retains its importance. That's the beauty and that's the genius of Krishna. So same way, if you see Srimad Bhagavad Gita also, the first 6 chapters it spoke primarily about Karma Yoga, about the Yoga ladder. Last 6 chapters talk about Jnana Yoga, with the exception 18th chapter is just a conclusion or a summary of whatever that we had discussed. But the middle 6 chapters, that's the most important topic, and of all of them, 9th is the most confidential knowledge. Prabhupada himself is saying in the purport. And the beauty of Bhagavad Gita is that despite letting out what the most important knowledge is, even before the halfway point, still it retains its importance. We are not going to lose interest saying, I know what the conclusion is. I can tell you the conclusion now, 1866. Hari bol. So that's the beauty of Bhagavad Gita. No matter how many times we read, we'll never feel saturated. No matter how many times we look at Krishna, we can never see enough of him. We always feel more and more blissful again and again and again. So that's the genius of Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita, even though sometimes there is a notion, it's a very basic book. It's a very fundamental book, true. But if we know Bhagavad Gita, we can explain any religion. We are talking about, worshippers of demigods go to demigods, worshippers of ghosts go to planets of the ghosts, so on and so forth. We can explain any philosophy if you know Bhagavad Gita. In fact, if you read Bhagavad Gita, go and sit in any Bhagavatam class, any Chaitanya Charitamrita class, or any philosophy class, anywhere in the world. It will make sense for us. There will be a certain sense of familiarity we all have. So there isn't anything much we learn by going to a class. There isn't much new, something that we didn't know. We have been, if you recollect, past 9 classes, Haribol, we have all survived together. We have been, in one sense, discussing the same thing over and over again. Chant Hare Krishna. Don't do sense gratification. Follow four regulative principles. Meditate on Krishna. We even was discussing about what's the master of all the rules. Always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. And it's the same thing we are going to discuss over and over again. I don't mean to discourage you from attending classes. That's not the idea here. I'm just telling the potency of Bhagavad Gita. Nevertheless, no matter how many times we actually hear, we feel very, very satisfied. We feel there is something new that's actually springing up in our heart. Radhanath Maharaj says, to be able to read scriptures and to be able to speak scriptures, like how I am doing, all it takes is just good karma. However, to understand scriptures, to realize scriptures, and to live scriptures, he says it takes mercy and blessings of Vaishnavas. So just to read through the pages and to even speak, give great classes, it doesn't take much qualification, devotionally speaking. All it takes is maybe good memory power, maybe oratory skills, and all right, some good karma. But to be able to take the same knowledge, to imbibe that, put it as part of our value system, to live that, to realize that, to really understand that, to really put value, give priority to that knowledge, it takes mercy and it takes blessings of Vaishnavas. We were discussing this point at the beginning of this course, how we were citing Chanakya Pandit there. How he says to do austerity, you should do alone. To study scriptures, you should do in pairs. Two people should come together, study, discuss. That way, we can share our knowledge. That way, Krishna chooses, actually, himself to reveal only in such circumstance, wherein at least the more, the merrier, obviously. The more of us come together, attempted to study this scripture, the more Krishna is allowing himself to be revealed. Okay? So to do kirtan, he says you should do in threes, and when you travel, you should do in fours. So studying this knowledge, especially this most confidential knowledge, it's not just a matter of, yeah, I know that, I have the secret password, I just type it in, and it's there. It's there. In fact, you can take this recording of this most confidential knowledge, give it to anybody. Nobody can actually make any sense unless we ourselves make ourselves receptive to that knowledge. Krishna's love is always there. Sometimes you come to temple, you will see. Sometimes all of us have this experience. Sometimes you walk into the temple room, we'll feel as if deities are reciprocating with us. Sometimes you feel, you walk into the temple room, you won't feel. It will feel like as if they're just staring at us, we are also staring at them. There'll be something that's missing. How many of you have this experience? But interestingly, on the days when you feel, you'll be surprised how many people say, oh, Krishna was so lovely, like that. So it's the same Krishna. It's the same Krishna who is exuding love all the time. It's us who is sometimes making ourselves receptive to that love and sometimes not so receptive. Gaura Govinda Maharaj, he says, when you go to fetch a bucket of water from a river, what it matters is obviously there should be water in the river. But the most important thing is how empty is our bucket. If we go carrying mud in our bucket, no matter how much you dip, you're not going to get much water. Whereas if you go with an empty bucket, dip it, you're going to get a bucket full of water. So Maharaj says that we should be receptive. If we go with our own preconceived notions, our own anarthas, our own faults, and make no attempt to empty that, then no matter how much we actually dip, we are not going to get much. So most confidential knowledge here refers to pure devotional service. So Prabhupada, if you read the purports, Prabhupada actually explains in 2nd and 3rd chapter, Krishna spoke about the soul. In 7th and 8th chapter, Krishna spoke about devotional service. And in 9th, Krishna is going to speak about pure devotional service. So Prabhupada writes, because 2nd and 3rd chapter, it reveals the knowledge of the soul, this is called a confidential knowledge. 7th and 8th reveals about devotional service. This is more confidential knowledge. 9th chapter reveals the knowledge of pure devotional service. So it is called most confidential knowledge. Now, the question that naturally comes is, who is qualified? Because if knowledge is so openly available to anyone, then there is no need to put this gradation there. When you say something is special, naturally the one question that comes is, so who's going to qualify for that? So Krishna says that in the very first verse, idam tute guyatanam pravakshami anasuyave jnana vijnana sagitam yagyatva mokshasheshvad. So Krishna says there is only one qualification for this knowledge to be revealed. And what is that? Non-enviousness. Anasuyave. We should not have any envy. Generally, our tendency is if you watch a movie, we want to be the hero. Generally, that's why people watch. If you watch a game, you want to be the star player there. That's why people usually watch. Even somebody with no idea of any spiritual knowledge, they go to any place, they see the one who is hogging the limelight, and they want to be that person. That's why. Now, that is envy. Because it's okay to desire to be in that position, but what will happen of that position, of the person who is in that position? Okay? Whereas Krishna here, he is saying Arjuna doesn't have any envy, which means if Krishna is revealing the knowledge about him, Arjuna is not going to think, I want to be Krishna. In other words, if we hear about Krishna dancing with the gopis, we should relate ourselves more with the gopis, not with Krishna. Krishna is the Supreme Lord, which means we should cultivate the habit of thinking, what can I do to elevate ourselves to go to the position of gopis, to go to the position of dear servants of Krishna, so that Krishna will also be able to take pleasure out of my service. That should be the mood. That is non-enviousness. However, if we think like how Sahajiyas think, they want to be Krishna, which means there is envy. So that quality of envy is very, very detrimental. Because you imagine, let's say I have a friend, if I'm envious of him, the more he's going to tell me about his glories, what am I going to feel? I'm going to feel more jealous. So rather than this knowledge taking me higher, it will actually pull me down. And we have seen examples of that. Even in Mahabharata, if you see, you read Krishna book, there are many demons who got envious of Krishna. They want to be Krishna. You see Sankachuda. When he comes and he sees Krishna and Balaram being with gopis, he wanted to take gopis and he wanted to enjoy. Of course, he has to pay a heavy price for that. Krishna kills him. So, point is that is what is called non-enviousness. When we hear this knowledge should go deep for us to understand how I can qualify myself to become a pure devotee of Krishna. That's non-enviousness. Now, Krishna is feeling so comfortable with Arjuna that he is revealing everything about him. Because he knows Arjuna has got no envy in his heart. And the more I'm going to reveal my glory to him, more it is going to bring him closer to me as my servant. So that's the only qualification which Krishna says is required. In second verse, Krishna says this knowledge which he is about to reveal is the Raja Vidya Rajagoyam. It's the king of knowledge. King of knowledge means, as I said, if we know this knowledge, we don't need to know anything more. If you read Prabhupada's books, small books like Hare Krishna Challenge, Life Comes from Life, or Perfect Question, Perfect Answers, The Science of Self-Realization, books which are more transcripts of conversations or debates which Prabhupada had, or morning walks especially. You will see Prabhupada very convincingly putting forth arguments to establish the position of Krishna or to establish the position of devotional service. One morning walk Prabhupada is going, Prabhupada will always ask his disciples to assume the position of a challenger. So he says, all right, today you are a materialistic scientist. So you argue. Then one of the disciples argues with Prabhupada. So Prabhupada, we don't accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prabhupada said, you don't accept. I accept. So this is Prabhupada's argument. And then the disciple then puts forth the question that wearing the hat of a materialistic scientist. He says, we will be able to find someone who is more greater than Krishna. Prabhupada says, no problem. Until you come to the point of proving that you have someone higher than Krishna, we will worship Krishna. So, Prabhupada, once he was going on a flight also, you'll see another conversation where I think he's going to an African country, Kenya, I believe. He goes with Madhudesha Maharaj. They both share the seat in the same row. So it's a long flight. So Prabhupada tells to Madhudisha, all right, let's both argue. So he tells to Madhudisha Maharaj, you are the Mayavadi and I'm Vaishnava. Let's argue. So Prabhupada smashes him in 30 seconds. So checkmates him. So then Madhudisha Maharaj says, what's so great about it, Prabhupada? Anyway, I'm not putting forth proper philosophy. It's just Mayavad philosophy. So what's so great of you defeating me? Then Prabhupada says, all right, let's swap the roles. So then they swap the roles. Again, Prabhupada smashes him in 30 seconds. And then Madhudisha Maharaj says, Prabhupada, whether you play the role of a Vaishnava or you play the role of a Mayavadi, your arguments are very strong. Prabhupada says, yes, when we study philosophy, we should be studying it so deep that we should be in a position even to know in and out about the opponent's philosophy. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was a great expert in it. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as a Nimai Pandit, when he goes through the streets, whichever scholars come in front of him, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would argue. He'll defeat. Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will say, all right, let's swap the roles. So he'll swap the roles. Again, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will defeat his own argument. And then when the person just feels that, yes, that means my original argument is correct, then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu again will swap the role again back, and he says he'll defeat that again. So after some time, it goes back and forth. The person would completely get flabbergasted. And all he will say is like, next time if they see Nimai Pandit, he'll run away. Many of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's associates used to do that. Mukunda Datta, he'll run away. All these great acharyas, all these great Vaishnavas, they'll run away whenever they see Nimai Pandit. So Srila Prabhupada and all our acharyas, for that matter, they are all very experts in this philosophy of Nyaya or logic, basically. But this knowledge which Krishna is about to reveal will tell us everything we want to know about both material world as well as spiritual world. So no matter what philosophy we come across, we can define what Christianity is, we can define what Islamism is, we can define what Buddhism is, we can define, you name it. Anything under the sun, we can explain. That's the beauty of this book. Even though it's very small, it is the essence of everything. And because we have this knowledge, we get into that familiarity, in a good sense actually. You can walk into any class, you can still understand everything. However, we should never come to, there is a downside to it. And the downside is, I know all of this. You go to any class, I didn't say, sometimes you come for sannyasis class, and sannyasis will sit and they'll give classes and say, I'm about to reveal something really, really deep. And they'll say, you are not the body. And we think, I know about it already. But that's not the point. Point here is, how much are they saying and how much they actually mean. When we chant Hare Krishna, even when we are chanting just one round, or when we chant Hare Krishna, coming to the, to the level of non-stop chanting, it's the same Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. However, initially when we chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, what's the meaning of Hare Krishna Maha Mantra? Prabhupada gives the most simplest, deepest definition. Oh my Lord, oh energy of the Lord, please engage me in your service, correct? But do we really mean it? We don't. Most of the times we don't. Most of the times when we chant, when is it going to finish? When is it going to finish? And then when we put it down, somebody asks for Prabhu, come for devotional. He says, no, I'm busy. And we run away also. So we don't really mean it. But when the devotees, pure devotees, when they say you are not the body, you are the soul, when the acharyas, when they actually chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, they really mean it. So that knowledge, the jnana, theoretical knowledge is available for everyone. But to take that theory to the point of realization, that's a lifelong exercise. That's a multiple lifetime exercise. Okay? So when Krishna says this is king of knowledge, this is most confidential knowledge, pratyaksha vagamam dharmyam, this knowledge is supposed to be experienced. That's what Krishna means. He's not talking on a very superficial level. That's why this is most confidential knowledge. It's confidential knowledge, but it's available. It's in print. Largest, I think, the highest selling Bhagavad Gita copy throughout the world. Millions and millions. And yet, the knowledge will remain elusive if we don't have the mercy and the blessings of devotees. So our process is about voluntary submission. I was talking to one devotee. He shared a very interesting point. He said, Prabhu, in one sense, all Hare Krishnas are rebels. Because if you go outside this temple, right, the whole material civilization is going one way, we go in the other direction, actually. So he says, as a manager, you need to understand that you are managing a group of rebels. I thought, that's a very profound point. So he says, so you need to cater to individuals' propensities. And it's true. Each one of us are very unique, actually. Each one of us, you try to tell something, it's like, no, why? We ask a zillion questions here. That's because we have that in a good sense, actually. So we have that propensity, we have that tendency, if we can, from our side, realize that, yes, I want this knowledge, but there is a way to actually get this knowledge, which is to do submissive service, to be a servant of the other devotee, to actually go and voluntarily put ourselves in a submissive position to the other person, so he'll be pleased. And when he's pleased, naturally the knowledge will come from the heart. If we preach from our brains, it just goes to the other person's brain only. But if we preach from our heart, it goes to the other person's heart. It touches other person's heart. That's why it's said that we can't preach this knowledge to anybody more than the level that we have actually attained. So it's very important, even as practicing devotees, practicing preachers also, that we take this knowledge seriously, that we put ourselves in a very humble position, and then in that mode of service, we give this knowledge to other people, so that we can be a transparent via medium through which this mercy flows to everyone. That should be the proper mode. There is another way to actually look at this series of chapters, which is chapter 2, 3 to 6, 7 to 8, and 9. Chapter 2 speaks about soul. 3 to 6 speaks about how to realize soul. Different processes, how to realize that we are not the body, we are the soul. 7 to 8 spoke about, among all those processes, the best process, how to realize soul. Chapter 9 speaks about the glories of the best process, which is Bhakti Yoga. So here it's only Jnana. 3 to 6 we spoke about different types of yoga. 7 to 8 we spoke about Bhakti Yoga specifically. So this chapter speaks about glories of the best process, which is glories of devotional service or Bhakti Yoga. Okay, so this is also another categorization that's given by the Acharyas, how we can look at the flow of these chapters. Okay, so the first 3 verses, Krishna touches, before he goes deep into this knowledge, he gives a prelude that the glory of this knowledge, what qualification we need to have, which is non-enviousness. Okay, anasuya. Anasuya means no envy at all. So then Krishna, from 4th to 10th verse, if you read that one, you will see Krishna reveals more about this material world, more about knowledge on the different energies which he actually have. In Bhagavad Gita, interestingly, there are parallel themes, chapters which speak about the same theme but on a different level. For example, 3rd chapter spoke about Karma Yoga. 5th chapter also spoke about Karma Yoga, but we saw action in Krishna consciousness. There is a subtle difference between 3 and 5. 3rd chapter and 5th chapter. Same way, in 7th chapter also Krishna spoke about him. He also spoke about his energies. Earth, water, fire, air, ether. Krishna spoke about mind, intelligence, and ego. Altogether they form separated energies. Krishna says that. Yet there is another superior energy of mind, which are trying to conquer the inferior nature. He was saying that. So Krishna spoke about his energies in 7th chapter. Chapter 9 also, there is a parallel between 7 and 9. Just like there was a parallel theme between 3 and 5. There is a parallel theme between 7th and 9th chapter also. Here also is Krishna going to talk about energies, especially these verses 9.4 to 10. But he takes it in a bit more deeper level. Here Krishna just mentions about what his energies are. Here Krishna is going to speak about the interaction of these energies. And these energies are material and spiritual. So that's what Krishna is going to speak about in 9th chapter from verses 4 to 10. 10th verse is more like a summary of the previous verses 9.4 to 9. So if you read these verses, you will see Krishna is giving glory about him. Now, One thing, especially in this section of Bhakti Yoga, Krishna will glorify sometimes himself, how great he is. Krishna will also glorify how great the process of devotional service is. But they both are the same. Why does Krishna glorify him? To tell to people, I am so great, but Bhakti Yoga is even more greater. Why? It's just conquering me. So indirectly he glorifies Bhakti Yoga by glorifying himself, or sometimes he directly also glorifies Bhakti Yoga or devotional service. Okay, so in 7th chapter, you will see Krishna glorified more himself. Previous chapter, 8th chapter, we saw a comparison between Yoga Mishra Bhakti and pure Bhakti. So Krishna was glorifying devotional service. In chapter 9, Krishna is about to reveal his emotions. How he feels when a devotee offers bhakti, when a devotee offers devotional service to him. So in the entire Bhagavad Gita, you will see 2 chapters where Krishna speaks out his emotions. One is chapter 9. The only other place he'll do is chapter 18. So Krishna's emotions will hit its peak in these 2 places. In 9th chapter, which is exactly middle of Bhagavad Gita, there is one verse that actually repeats. The last verse of this chapter, 9:34, it actually repeats in 18th chapter also. Manmana Madbhakta verse, with a slight variation, but it's the exact same. But Krishna's emotions hit its peak in chapter 9 because he starts to glorify glories of devotional service. He'll lose track of how much he spoke, and then he'll continue speaking 10th chapter also. There won't be much question by Arjuna. He'll speak about the devotional service and he'll just extend to 10th chapter. You will see it'll just the transition will be very smooth. There won't be any interruption there in between. So 9th chapter speaks about that. This section, especially 9.4 to 10, it speaks about Krishna's opulence or Aishwarya Jnana, or knowledge of Krishna's opulence. This is (9.4 to 10). The last section of this chapter, 9:26 to 34, it speaks about his Madhurya Jnana, or the opulence of his sweetness, or devotional service. So this one speaks about his opulence. And 9:26 to 34, it speaks about glories of pure devotional service. Madhurya means sweet, because that binds Krishna, that brings out the sweetness in the whole relationship. That's called Madhurya Jnana. Whereas 9.4 to 10, Krishna is just showing or telling, sharing his opulences, how great he is. So that's called Aishwarya Jnana. Now, why does Krishna do that? Simply to attract us more. Simply by knowing more about Krishna, naturally we'll feel attracted. So that's why Krishna is sharing. We'll just go to 9.10th verse. This chapter has got a lot of applications, especially for practicing devotees. We'll see how much we can cover. So 9.10, Krishna says, this material nature, which is one of my energies, is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, producing all moving and non-moving beings. Under its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. Krishna is revealing something interesting about how material world works. Generally, we tend to think that our life is on a linear scale. Actually, it's not. Our life follows a cyclic style. But we tend to think it's linear. Linear, what do I mean by linear? I'll keep working. I'll earn money. And at one point in time, when I'm old, I'll have money, so then I'll enjoy, which is fine. That logic is fine as far as money is concerned. However, there is one most important point we are missing there. First is, death can hit us at any time. Second, the time when we have money, we won't have the vigor to enjoy. It's always a problem. So we tend to think, however, because mind will never allow us to look at a holistic picture. Remember I was saying, There are multiple versions of reality. Mind will always tell us only one version of reality, which is you need money. Earn money, become rich, enjoy. That's all it will say. Good, that's one version of reality. But something that's also happening in parallel is the strength in our body is actually declining. It won't tell us that. It won't tell us, we are losing time. There is death waiting for us. That also it won't tell us. So it will tell us only that tiny little bit where it thinks it can enjoy at that point of time. So that's all it will say. But that's the linear style, which is not true. If you observe the nature, we will see everything happens in cyclic style only. You take a tree, you sow a seed germinates, comes as a tree, gives unlimited seeds, and at some point, tree goes through the 6 phases. And for that matter, everything we saw in the 2nd chapter. There is birth, there is growth, there is maintenance, there is reproduction, there is dwindling, and then there is decay. So anything that is embodied, it goes through these 6 phases. And if you remember the changing body picture, there is a cycle there, if you remember. So it goes there, hits the peak, comes down, and then a baby, from baby all the way to you see a very old man dying, and then there is another baby again. It's a cycle. You take the phases of moon, waxing moon, waning moon. It's a cycle. Everything, you take units of time. It's a cycle. You take seasons. It's a cycle. So Krishna here, he's clearly revealing how this whole, you take, we call Kala Chakra, we call 4 yugas. We take, movement of planets. It's a cycle. Every single thing in this world is actually going through this same cycle only, over and over and over again. However, at any point of time, if we just take that one particular instance alone, it looks like it's linear. It's not. Okay, so we need to understand this point. Now, if we understand this, then we'll understand, because if I start somewhere and I'm going to come back to the same point, so what's the point in acquiring so many things along the way? That means I need to understand what is it that is the ultimate goal. From breaking, that is going to allow me to break this cycle and come out of this cycle completely. And that is the most urgent need, because death can hit us there, any point it can actually hit us. But if we are not aware of this cyclic style of operation in material world, we will think as if we have unlimited time. That's one argument you'll always hear. What's the use of reading Bhagavad Gita? We can read Gita when we are old. You will come across. What's the need of practicing spirituality now? Aren't we supposed to enjoy when we have all the energy? Yes. But then, when do you think you can attend scripture study class? When you are 90 years old? Who's going to ask that question? So it's not. So there are 2 needs we all have. We are born in this world. Yes, there is a certain set of materialistic needs we can't completely ignore. So that's there. But that's not all in all. There has to be an equal amount of effort, if not more, that has to be put to take care of our ultimate need, which is to go back to the spiritual world. So that's very important. See, application of this knowledge is, it will actually help us understand. We are not going to keep on acquiring, going on this acquisition spree. For how long? Until we die. Bhaktichar Maharaj says, very interesting point. He says that typical materialistic style is we lose our youth, earning money, hoping to enjoy. But then when you become old, you have money, and you spend all the money to regain the youth back. So you always have one or the other. So better is to go with that balanced approach. When we are young, okay, go with how much ever you have. When you are old, go with how much ever you have, because it's a cycle. Once we are dead, we can't really carry the money forward anyway. So what's the point in acquiring so much when you're going to lose them anyway at one point of time? Okay, so Krishna here, he clearly says this world works in a cyclic fashion only. Anything in this world, you sit, observe nature, you'll always see a cycle. Next section, 11 to 25. If you read your summary, it says, fools neglect bhakti, divine don't. So if you recollect in 7th chapter, Krishna spoke about 4 types of people who don't surrender. Namam dushkrituno muda prapadyante naradama. So there are 4 types of people who Krishna says who don't surrender. This verse 9.11 and 12, it speaks about one of them, which is the first category, mudas. So this chapter, these verses 11 and 12, it's going to explain about the psychology of that one particular person. It will tell more about why is that person not surrendering to Krishna. Krishna didn't elaborate much on why these guys don't surrender. Okay, so Krishna is picking up one of them, and in 11 and 12, Krishna is elaborating a bit more. telling, why are they not surrendering to me? Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. Why? They do not know my transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord of all that be. Again, they don't have the knowledge about him. That's why. So Krishna is elaborating a bit more. So if we go to verse 12, those who are thus bewildered or attracted by demonic and atheistic views, in that deluded condition, their hopes for liberation, fruitive activities, and their culture of knowledge are all defeated. In other words, those who don't have this knowledge, no matter what they try, they are going to end up as failures. So that's what Krishna is saying. Okay. 13 and 14, now Krishna will contrast against these people who don't surrender, nature of the people who do surrender. And Krishna says this famous verse, Mahatmanastu mampartha daivim prakritim ashritaha bhajanti ananya manasha bhuta nyatva bhutadim avyayam. Now, we have studied in second chapter. What's the dimension of the soul? Anyone remember? Yes, 1/10,000th part of tip of hair. Now, interestingly, if you read this verse, what is Krishna saying? Oh, son of Pritha, those who are not deluded, the great souls. There, Krishna said, you are so small soul. It's very small. But Krishna is saying, even though we are small, how can we become great? How? By surrendering to him. Okay, so that's what Krishna says in this verse 13. 13 and 14, they both talk about pure devotees. 13 speaks more about the internal characteristic of a Mahatma or a great soul. What is his internal characteristic? He simply surrenders to Krishna. 14th, on the other hand, speaks about external characteristics. In other words, how can you identify him? What activities he do? Okay, always chanting my glory. Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dridhavrata namasyantascha mam bhaktya nityayukta upasate. So Krishna says that these are the external characteristics. So 13 talks about internal. It speaks about internal characteristics of a Mahatma. And 9:14 speaks about external characteristics. Now, usually, if you speak about yoga to any random person, they will talk about this idea of peace. You know, do nothing, sit in one place, quiet. Many times, you know, when we go for book distribution, they get confused. After we talk so much, and they say, are you really monk? I thought monks don't talk. Even if they do, they don't talk as much as you do. So, but that's people's understanding about yoga. They think it's peace. Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, he says that the heart's most cherished prize is not actually peace, it's actually love. There is always this void we all have in our heart, and we keep searching for it in different places. We tried. All of us have experience. That's how we came to Krishna consciousness. All of us have that experience, searching for it. There is that void, which no matter what you put there, it never gets filled. We keep trying that in one place after the other, hoping something or someone can actually fill that gap. But nobody can actually, until we come to Krishna. And then when Krishna comes forward, Krishna just doesn't fill the gap. Krishna gives much more. He gives himself. Acharyas say, in the verse today we'll actually see, Maite teshu chapyaham. When a devotee practices Krishna consciousness, Krishna and devotee enter each other's heart. Okay, so a devotee walks into Krishna's heart, Krishna also walks into devotee's heart. So it's very important, even as practicing devotees, that we don't just become complacent. Yeah, I'm practicing, I don't have any problem. Then we are just settling for some consolation prize. I'm feeling very peaceful. But a person who really is a winner, most cherished prize is actually love. Which means acting in accordance with what 9:14 is saying. Satatam kirtayantamam, always chanting my glories, endeavoring with determination. These great souls perpetually worship me with love. So this is the characteristic of somebody who can be called as a Mahatma. So this is how we understand how progressed a person is, how advanced a devotee is. So it's very important that we understand this, but general notion is yoga means peace. That is okay. Radhanath Maharaj writes in this in his autobiography, Journey Home. He says that he was going different places in his quest for spirituality. So he comes across a place in the foothills of Himalayas, and there was one person standing. Near to him, there was a board that actually said, this person hasn't uttered a word for 20 years. And he sees somebody, they call him Mauni Baba, and then he just sits there, keeping quiet. And he says exactly opposite to him, there was another person, and the board actually said, this person hasn't spoken for 30 years or something. He also doesn't speak, so they both keep quiet. And he said, I thought maybe this is spirituality. So Maharaj was saying, so I sat down there observing what their activities are. He's saying, almost like after an hour, this person took a slate and he started writing something, communicating to the other guy. That's their chatting process. And the other person picks up a slate with a chalk and he starts writing. And Maharaj says, what's the point? You don't speak, but you're chatting actually. So people usually think going for something peace. Radhanath Maharaj says, for people who don't know what to speak, for people whose mind goes crazy, yeah, it's considered as advancement if we can keep quiet. So peace is an achievement for them. Whereas on the other hand, those who know exactly how to engage these senses, how to glorify the Supreme Lord, who can, despite speaking, doesn't incur any karma. For him, he has to engage. You see the difference? If you don't know what to speak, if you speak only nonsense, if you only gossip, then keep quiet. That's a good advancement. But if you know exactly how to positively engage, now you positively engage. Mahatmas do know that. That's why they go for love. They don't just settle for peace. Okay, so we need to actively engage our senses. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchyate. So that's how Krishna explains. Now, 11 to 12, it spoke about people who don't surrender to Krishna. 13 to 14, it spoke about those who surrender to Krishna. Interestingly, 9:15, it speaks about one category that fall in between these two. So these guys don't surrender. This one do surrender. 9:15 speaks about three categories of people who are neither here nor there. And there are three terms that are actually used. Ekatvena, Pritakwena, Bahuda Vishwatomukam. So there is Ekatvena, Pritakwena. Vishwatomukam. Ekatvena, they are already explained in 11 to 12. In other words, they are Mayavadis. People who worship themselves as God. So that's Mayavadi. Aham Brahmasmi. Pritakwena. They are explained from verses 20 to 25. They are demigod worshippers. Bahuda Vishwatomukam. They are from 16 to 19 and they worship the universal form of the Lord. Virat Rupa. Yeah. Now Prabhupada says, of the three, this is the lowest. And this is the highest. So these are the three different types of people. So there is Ekatvena, Pritakwena, Bahuda Vishwatomukam. So they are the three types of people. Ekatvena means people who are Mayavadis. Eka means one. Ekatvena means they say everything is one. I am God, you are God, all of us are God. So that is Mayavadis. And Krishna already alluded about them in 11 to 12. Pritakwena are demigod worshippers. They worship multiple demigods, hoping to get something back, hoping to get something out. Okay, they have some desires in the heart, and they go for that worship. So they are demigod worshippers. Vishwatomukam, and there are still others who worship the universal form of the Lord. Now the reason why these are highest, this is lowest, because obviously they are Mayavadis. They completely say no to God. Pritakwena, they are considered slightly advanced because they are still accepting supremacy of the Lord. Not directly though. They are still following the Vedic scriptures. Vedic scriptures speak about different karma kanda, different demigods and everything. So they are still at least accepting. These people reject Ekatvene, they accept the scriptures. However, they reject the supremacy of the Lord completely. And they say, I'm God. Whereas demigod worshippers, they still follow the scriptures, but they read only the karma kanda sections and they worship the demigods. So they are considered slightly advanced. Someone even more slightly advanced than them is one who worshipped the universal form. So these people, they came to the conclusion, there's only one supreme Lord. Demigods are not God, but universal form of the Lord, that's God. This is their understanding, unfortunately. Okay, so none of them are pure devotees, as you can see, but between them there is this gradation. Okay, so there is Ekatvena, Prithakvena, and Vishwatomukam. The order, if you see, 16 to 19, it speaks about the universal form of the Lord. So if you read that, Krishna will say, but it is I who am the ritual, the sacrifice, the offering to the ancestors, similar to 424. Brahmarpanam Brahmahivir, that was the healing herb, the transcendental chant, I am the butter and the fire and the offering. So if you read through that, if you go to 18th, 18 is a very interesting verse. It's a good definition of God. Usually when people ask, who's God? This is also a good definition. I am the goal, the sustainer, the master, the witness, the abode, the refuge, and the most dear friend. I am the creation and annihilation and the basis of everything, the resting place and eternal seed. So Krishna covers everything. And then 19, Krishna again touches on, I give heat and I withhold and send forth rain. Krishna spoke similar things in 7th chapter also we saw. I am immortality, not immorality, immortality. And I am also death personified. Both spirit and matter are in me. So Krishna covers everything and he says, this whole manifestation, which is the universal form of the Lord, the Vishwarupa form of the Lord, for many, that is the supreme. So they worship. Okay?
15, 16, which category does he explain?
Sorry, what? 15, Krishna speaks about the three types. That's where he makes a mention about these three types of people. 16 to 19, Krishna speaks about universal form. 16 to 19, yeah.
So 15, when he says
15 is just a summary. It doesn't fall in any category. Okay, so 15, he just makes a mention about these three people. That's all. And 16 to 19 speaks about the universal form. 20 to 25, it speaks about demigod worshippers.
so when somebody worships the pure form of Krishna,
Yeah. Then he comes under 13 to 14. He is a pure devotee. Thank you. Okay, so that's covered already in 13 and 14. Okay?
There's a difference between seeing the Virat Rupa and seeing Krishna as a supreme person.
Correct. No, she was asking about worshipping Krishna in two-handed form. So that which is devotional service directly. Okay. So 20 to 25, Krishna speaks about worshipping demigods. Now in between when Krishna speaks, as I said, this is a chapter where Krishna's emotions will just come out helplessly from him. Even though that section is actually speaking about demigod worships, Krishna will immediately contrast about pure devotional service, even in that section. It's like, for example, let's say you have your kid coming and asking for, asking you to buy something for him or her. Now, you want to discourage the kid. So, but you won't, if you say no, they're not going to accept it. So what would you do? Yeah, what you are asking is okay, this is fine, these are the benefits, everything. But if you take this, it will be much better. You'll immediately say that, right? That's exactly what Krishna is also doing here. He's saying they are demigod worshippers, they can worship for different desires to fulfill that. You can worship all of that. But if you worship me, this is what you're going to get. And then he'll go back. By the way, if you want to continue to worship, you can worship. If you see the flow, you will clearly see that. Okay, let's quickly go through this section. This is 20. Those who study the Vedas and drink the Soma juice, seeking the heavenly planets, worship me indirectly, which is demigod worshippers. We also saw, if you remember, about demigod worship in 7th chapter, how Krishna, first of all, he gives the faith in the heart of the person who worships the demigod, and how Krishna, residing in the heart of the demigod also, has to fulfill that. Everything we actually saw. So Krishna orchestrates the whole demigod worship. Why? Out of love. Simply out of love. Because it's like a kid crying for something, and the parents sometimes would actually say yes against their own desire, simply to satisfy the child out of the love for the child. So same way, Krishna fulfills the desires of demigod worshippers simply out of love. And Krishna is also so confident that even by doing all of that, at some point these souls will come to me anyway. Right? When you know exactly what you are, so what problem do you have? If somebody says, no, I want to go there, yeah, you can go there. No problem. Sometimes even among preaching devotees, you will see this is one challenge that would come. Let's say you start to preach to a person comes to Krishna consciousness. After some time, you will see the person going and associating more with, let's say, some other devotee. And sometimes, if we are immature in actually saying, it may cause clash also. We may think, hey, somebody has actually taken the person away. He was my contact. But actually, that's not the point. Point is that we all have a role to perform in everyone's journey. Now, for somebody, it may be the first 10 miles. And for some, the journey would actually, the help would actually start from 21st to 30 maybe. It's like that. So it goes. So when we see it on a broader perspective, that we are simply instruments in the hand of Krishna. Krishna sometimes he may allow me to serve a jiva, allow me to serve a conditioned soul in its beginning stage, sometimes in a middle stage, and sometimes in advanced stage. We don't know. So we have to be open, and at the end of the day, we are simply instruments in the hand of Krishna. Whatever service, wherever, whenever he asks us to do, we simply do. That's the best way to practice Krishna consciousness, and that's the best way to be happy all the time. Otherwise, even inside Krishna consciousness, we can easily get stuck. Now, Krishna clearly, he demonstrates that. You go to Krishna, and there are persons who asked Krishna, Krishna, I accept you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but I want only liberation. Yogamishra Bhakta, we saw in the previous chapter. Or somebody goes to Krishna and says, not directly, even indirectly, he just goes to demigod worshipper. Krishna says, all right, so be it. He just fulfills their desires through the demigods. Okay, 21st verse. When they have thus enjoyed vast heavenly sense pleasure and the results of their pious activities are exhausted, they return to this mortal world again. Those who seek sense enjoyment by adhering to the principles of the three Vedas achieve only repeated birth and death. So basically from the world, Bhuloka, a person can accrue pious credits, and by virtue of that he may go to heaven. But Prabhupada says in that verse, Shine Punya Marti Lokam Vishanti, once it gets discredited as you keep using, because there also you live for 10,000 years with one day equal to 365 days for us. So this is their duration. You can calculate if you like to. In earth days, how many days it comes to for them. So they live for 10,000 years in heavenly kingdom, and each day of each year has 365 days there, but each day is equal to 365 days in our calculation. That's how long they live. Relatively bigger, but it's not eternity. But once they use up all their credit, they will be born again in this material world. So that's what Krishna is saying in 21st verse. 22nd, this is what I said. Immediately Krishna says, by the way, if you worship me, but those who always worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack, and I preserve what they have. Very beautiful verse. In Sri Sampradaya, there is an Acharya, Arjuna Acharya. There is a beautiful story. When he writes commentary on this verse, he's a scholarly devotee, Brahmana. When he writes commentary on this particular verse, if you read the Sanskrit, Ananyas Chintayanto Mam, Ejana Paripasate, Tesham Nityabhi Yuktanam, Yogakshemam, Vahamyaham. Vahami means personally carry. He's a great Vaishnava, and he was thinking, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Why should he personally carry? He thought there is some mistake in the Gita version he had. So what he did, when he was writing, he struck this line, Vahami, and he put Karomi. Karomi means, this is personally carry. Karomi means, I will get it done, which means through someone else. So he struck this line, Vahami, and he put Karomi inside. Closed his book, and he just goes to take bath. Meanwhile, his wife is there in the home. She hears a knock on the door. She opens. There were two beautiful boys carrying a load of groceries on their hands. One was black and the other one was white. You know who they are. Krishna and Balaram. So they come in, they give the groceries, and they were about to run outside. And the wife stops, like, she gets very enchanted just looking at them. And she says, like, why are you running? Oh no, your husband will beat us. Then they say, like, no, he's a very pious Brahmana, very, very sattvic person. Why would he beat you? No, really, he asked us to carry, otherwise he said he'll beat us. See, and they turned, showed their back, and she could see markings of whip on their back. And she gets completely upset with her husband, and they run away. When Arjuna Acharya comes back, when he hears the tale from his wife, he goes immediately to look at the commentary we wrote. He has written, when they actually came in and went out, the strike which he has actually put, it got vanished. So they wanted to prove to him that actually, no, we ourselves personally carry. So Krishna, many times even in our lives, we will have this problem. You know, so when we practice Krishna consciousness, you will come across sometimes devotees also. They practice very well, even sometimes, even after initiation it happens. Some challenge comes, when very, very big challenge, let's say real tough time. Usually there is a tendency to think, let me fix my material life. Once it's fixed, I will come back. I will resume from where I left off. But the problem is, it never happens. This is material world. Krishna himself says, this is Dukalayam Ashashvatam. Okay, this whole place is, there's a great democracy of miseries among all of us. Every one of us go through misery. The question is, how and when? Varieties are there, but everyone has misery. You be rich, poor, young, old, beautiful, not so, doesn't matter. We tend to think. And when we hit at a challenge, we tend to think, oh, what am I going to live with? But if we, rather than questioning ourselves, what am I going to live with, if we start to question, why do I live for? What do I live for? Do I live for just maintaining my material body? Do I live for simply to be happy just for, like, for so many years? Is that why I'm living for? Is that what I'm living for? Is that the most important priority I'm giving? Krishna is saying we need to redefine our priorities. When we read this verse, we need to redefine our priorities clearly, that no matter what happens, I'm going to stick to Krishna. I'm not going to compromise in my relationship with Krishna. I'm not going to compromise my practice with Krishna, no matter what reversal I get. In other words, rather than questioning, what am I going to live with? I should simply question myself whenever any challenge comes, what do I live for? I live for to practice Krishna consciousness. I live for developing my love, dormant love for Krishna. I live to simply give pleasure to Krishna. Now, if we focus on that, if we focus on why we live for, or why we live, Krishna will take care of how we are going to live. If we simply put our focus about how can I actually take every opportunity as personally orchestrated by Krishna? How can I see Krishna's hand in everything? How can I learn in no matter what the circumstances, whatever Krishna wants me to do? If we put our focus there, then Krishna is promising, you don't worry, I will take care of the rest. And you will see, even in our lives, even in many devotees' lives, you can see, devotees go through so much difficulty, but you will see Krishna's mystical hand. Have you got experience of that? When we also think, that's it, I give up. Krishna, miraculously, if you think he's just standing there playing flute, no, there are a lot of things that happens with that flute. So don't underestimate Krishna. So Krishna is clearly telling here that you simply focus on the values of Bhakti Yoga. You simply stick to the process. I will carry you. I will take care of yourself. You don't worry. That's what Krishna is saying. And we all have that experience. We all have that most defining moments, actually, when our experience in Bhakti Yoga actually got very, very deep. We even think that looks like I'm the most chosen one here. We all feel. But actually, Krishna treats everyone special. And all of us have that personal reciprocation with Krishna. Okay, so that is very, very important for us to understand. So here we see Krishna's emotion coming out. Then the remaining 3 verses, Krishna will quickly skim through. Those who are devotees of other gods and who worship them in faith actually worship only me. Krishna said that in 7th chapter. O son of Kunti, but they do so in a wrong way, which is indirectly. 24. I am the only enjoyer and master of all sacrifices. Therefore, those who do not recognize my true transcendental nature fall down. Here, fall down refers to people falling down from heavenly kingdom, which means people who worship demigods, they go to heavenly kingdom, and then they fall down naturally, back again from wherever they started. So that's the fall down which Krishna speaks about here. In 25, Krishna gives a summary or a principle. Yanti deva vrita devan, pitrini yanti pitirvrita, bhutani yanti bhutecha, yanti matya jinopi mam. Those who worship the demigods go to the planet of demigods. Those who worship forefathers, they go to the planets of forefathers. Those who worship ghosts and other hobgoblins, they go to the ghostly world. And Krishna says, those who worship me, come and live with me. They go to Goloka. So those who worship demigods, that's in mode of goodness. This is mode of passion. Forefathers worship. Worship of ghosts. Needless to say, it's in mode of ignorance. Worshipping Krishna, that's transcendence. It doesn't come in any of the modes. So those in mode of goodness, so this is, worshipping demigods is in goodness, worshipping forefathers passion, worshipping ghosts ignorance, and worshipping Krishna transcendence. I'll finish and I'll come back to your question. Okay, so this is what Krishna sums it up. In general, has a principle. In other words, sometimes Prabhupada says, Yatomat Tatopat. You can go to Krishna no matter whatever way. Prabhupada once uses an analogy. If I buy a ticket to California, I can't go to New York, I can only go to California. So same way Prabhupada saying, if I worship one God, I will only go to that God. So it's important that we understand we can go to Krishna only if and only if we worship Krishna directly. We worship Him in pure devotional service. Now the last section, it's very interesting. It speaks about the glories of devotional service and it will lead to the next chapter also, which is 10. Can we come back? Let me finish. So 26 to 34. Now if you read your summary, it has 3 subcategories. So 26, 27, 28. So 3 verses, 29 to 31. And then 32 to 34. So there are 3 categories of verses that's given. 26 to 28, it speaks about 2 categories of people. If you take verse 26, Krishna speaks about patram pushpam phalam toyam. Now, instead of saying patram means a single leaf. Krishna could have said patrani, multiple leaves. But Krishna is saying, you don't need to go through all this laborious process of karma yoga, jnana yoga, ashtanga yoga. We even saw Yoga Mishra Bhakta, how he has to sit erect with the Brahmarandra at the right time, right day, right half of the year. About the waxing moon, waning moon, influence of sun, too complicated. Whereas Krishna is saying, compared to that, you just offer me one leaf. Very simple. Okay, so this verse 26, 9:26 pertains more on deity worship, and the leaf which Krishna speaks about, if you read the purport, Prabhupada is saying it's tulsi leaf. Simply by offering one leaf, Krishna specifically says patram, and he doesn't say patrani. Patrani means multiple. Like morning when we do deity worship, we say, yetani tulsi patrani, that's multiple tulsi leaf. But this is patram. Patram means just one single leaf. No? Okay, water. Patram, pushpam, one flower. Phalam, one fruit. Krishna is saying, you do all of this, I accept it. Ashnami prayatatmana. Krishna is saying, I accept. He is giving assurance. Very, very simple process. On the other hand, if somebody says, no, Krishna, I'm not going to do exactly what you asked me to do, but I love you, I'll still offer you something. That's 9:27. That's the next category. So in that sense, 9:27 is one level below 9:26. I'll tell you why. Because if you read carefully 9:27, in 26, Krishna is telling what he wants. If you read 27, Krishna is saying, Yat karoshi, yad dashnashi, yad jugoshi, tatasiyat. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, it doesn't matter whether I like or not. Whatever you do, please at least offer me. Okay, so the desire for Krishna he expresses in 26. So that's pure devotional service. 27 is more a transition between Karma Yoga, Nishkama Karma Yoga and pure devotional service. Remember, Nishkama Karma Yoga means they will do service, they are not attached to the results, they will still do as a matter of duty, however, they are attached to doing certain type of activity. Nishkamis or not Nishkarmis. So 27 is a transition between Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. It's not pure Bhakti Yoga yet. And interestingly, 27, Krishna says, whatever you do, please offer. That's all he's saying. Krishna is never making explicit mention that he will accept it. There is never where he's saying, Ashnami. He's not saying, I'll accept it. Whereas 26 is pure devotional service. Okay, so we should aim for that. But if not, many times when you come across new people, you can somehow connect them with the Bhakti Yoga. Usually that's 927. Okay, you still allow people to do whatever they like to do and you still somehow connect it. It's still Bhakti Yoga, it's a transition. It's not a pure Bhakti Yoga yet. Okay? Reserve your questions, I'll come at the end. Whereas 26 is pure Bhakti Yoga. Krishna says that's pinnacle of Bhakti Yoga. What he wants, take it and you just do it. Finish. Okay? So that's 27. 28. In this way you'll be freed from bondage. Krishna is saying, if you do either 9, 26 or 27, what benefit are you going to get? You will get free from bondage and you will come back to me. So that's the benefit. So this is the first subcategory which Krishna speaks about, which is 9, 26 to 28. Next category, 29 to 31. So if you read 29th verse, I envy no one, nor am I partial to anyone. I am equal to all. But whoever renders service unto me in devotion is a friend, is in me, and I am also a friend to him. Very interesting verse. People usually speak about Krishna being partial. Now, in this verse, I envy no one, nor am I partial to anyone. The first half of the verse, it refers to Paramatma. Okay, as Paramatma, he is very neutral. He is not favoring anyone. He is not against anyone. He is not partial to anyone. He is very, very neutral. However, the last two verses, if you see, Krishna himself in one sense will contradict. But whoever renders service unto me in devotion is a friend, is in me, and I am also a friend to him. This also proves that Krishna is a person. Otherwise, only a rock will be neutral to everyone, correct? I love you, okay, you will also give me love. I'll beat you, you will also give me love. That's possible only for a non-sentient being. Krishna is a person with full feelings. He is a person. He is Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, listen to this Prabhupada's definition. Prabhupada in one place is saying, we call Supreme Lord's lotus feet. Feet means he is a person. Okay, Prabhupada gives the most terse definition to prove Krishna is a person. We always say Padaravindam. Lotus feet means he is a person. That's Prabhupada's logic there. So, in 29, Krishna is saying, the first half of the verse speaks about Paramatma, and the second half of the verse, it speaks about Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead that he is. Now, Krishna is saying, as Paramatma, I am neutral to everyone. I'll just avoid everyone's results of karma and everything. However, as Bhagavan, I am partial. But that partiality is impartially partial. Krishna is impartially partial. Impartially means, I'll tell you a story in Ramayana. When Vibhishan is one of the brothers of Ravan. So Vibhishan is a devotee. He tries to advise to to Ravana, please return back Mother Sita. Ravana didn't agree. So Vibhishan abandons Ravana. I'm going to take 5 minutes more today, with your permission. So then he gives up everything, and then he comes to the other camp, to Lord Ram's camp. When Lord Ram sees Vibhishan, Lord Ram actually tells Vibhishan, oh Lankapati, Vibhishan. Lankapati means, oh king of Lanka. Now devotees are shocked because king of Lanka is Ravan, his brother. So then devotees ask Ram, by calling him Lankapati, you have already made him, because he is Supreme Lord, whatever he says becomes true. Satya Sankalpa. By calling Vibhishan as Lankapati, you have already made him king of Lanka. What will you do if, in the unlikely possibility of Ravan coming and taking shelter of you now? Then Lord Ram says, well, I'll give him Ayodhya. Then devotees go one step further and they ask, well, what will you do if Bharat asks now? Because Bharat is Lord Ram's brother. Currently, he is ruling Ayodhya. What will you do if your brothers want to rule? Then he says, for them, I'll give Vaikuntha. Then finally, devotees ask, If you give Ayodhya to somebody, Vaikuntha also to somebody, what will you do? Oh, I'll serve all of them. That's what Lord Ram says. In other words, impartially partial means whoever, even it may be Ravan, if he comes and takes the shelter of Krishna, Krishna will be partial to him in his favor. Which means Krishna is showing his love, special love to whoever comes and takes the shelter. So he is impartial. Understand? So that's what it means, impartially partial. So anyone can come and take shelter. So that's impartial. But whoever comes and takes shelter, Krishna will be loyal to that love. Okay? I think we need to be fair when we judge the Supreme Lord. Right? He is not saying, I will show favor only to a certain category of people, to certain species. Krishna is saying, anybody can come. He is impartial. But whoever makes it to him is going to be partial. Okay? So, there are many examples also in scriptures how Krishna simply reciprocates. Bali Maharaj's sister, her name is Ratnamala. Ratnamala in her next life become, take a guess, Putana. If you read Krishna book, you will see the gigantic demoness who Krishna killed. Now when Bali Maharaj was conquered or cheated by Vamanadev, when Vamanadev walks into the arena, Ratnamala, who is the daughter of Bali Maharaj, she looks at Vamanadev and she thinks how cute he looks. I would like to feed him if he is my baby. I would have fed him my breast milk if he is my baby. So Vamanadev made a note of that. And then as the pastime ensued, he went and then he conquered. He cheated Bali Maharaj, he took away all his kingdom. At that time, Ratnamala gets angry with Vamanadev and she thinks, if only he is my child, I will kill him. Vamanadev made a note of that. So she wants to give milk and she wants to kill. Look at how Krishna reciprocates. Krishna accepted the milk and killed her. Krishna is neutral. Whatever that comes, he just takes it and then he reciprocates with them. Exactly like how a person approaches. Okay? Krishna also follows the rule book there. Okay, so Krishna's partiality can never be in question, no matter what the circumstances. He always manages his life pretty good. Okay, so the last section speaks about Krishna's favoritism. Now it's very open that Krishna is partial. So 31, we saw 32. O son of Pritha, those who take shelter in me. Now this section 29 to 31 also speaks about those devotees who accidentally falls down in the process. Krishna says, even in that case, they are still saintly. Why? Because they are still practicing Krishna consciousness with determination. And then eventually, quickly he says, Shipram Bhavati. Shipram Bhavati means simply by continuing to practice this Krishna consciousness, even though they may temporarily fall down, immediately they come back on track. And they will go back. So no matter what position a devotee is in, okay, he may be practicing proper, she may be practicing proper, or they may stop it, or they may even fall down, apparently. But Krishna says, all of them, sadhu reva samantavya. Despite their situation, everyone has to be treated as a sadhu, as a proper devotee, despite his or her personal standing at any point of time. Why? Because material world is very difficult. What to do? There are difficulties. Accidental fall downs do happen. That doesn't disqualify anybody. Krishna is saying they have to be treated on the level of sadhus. And so Krishna is giving this all assurance to his devotees. Okay, so then 32 to 34, which is the final section, Krishna speaks about not just accidental fall downs, but inherently, there may be people who may not be in a favorable position to practice Krishna consciousness. Okay, and Krishna gives 3 examples here. Usually it evokes controversy, but I'll tell you the proper context of this. Mam hi partha vyapashritya, tepi syu papayonya, striyo vaishyo tata shutra, tepi anti param gatim. Stri, Vaishya, Tata Shudra. Of the 4 Varnas, there is Brahmana, there is Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. Of the 4, generally, majority of times, it's only Brahmanas and Kshatriyas who go to Gurukula. In other words, a certain portion of their life is actually set aside to cultivate transcendental knowledge, to cultivate self-realization, the mood of self-realization. So they are given that opportunity. Whereas if you take Vaishyas, they usually don't go to Gurukula. Shudras, they don't go to Gurukula. So they don't really have the time nor the disposition to go and cultivate this Brahma Vidya, which is knowledge about the soul. Okay? So comparatively, if you actually see, these two are low. But in the context of going to Gurukul, going to cultivate transcendental knowledge, opportunities are less, time is also not there. There is no dedicated time for them. Same situation for Stree also. Usually there is no women Gurukula, but all glories to Prabhupada. Prabhupada, once he goes to, when he is in Mayapur, he says, I will tell you why all other mutts failed and ISKCON alone survived. Prabhupada says, my secret weapon is my women disciples. I empowered all of them. It's by mercy of Prabhupada, all of us are here. There was no qualification whatsoever. Prabhupada himself says, if you go to Mayavad School of Philosophy, to go to spiritual world, one should take sannyas. Forget it. You know who is going to go? So Prabhupada says, Vaishnavism, especially Bhakti Yoga, it's so affable, so accessible to anyone. Anybody can walk in and they can actually do, including anybody who is in any of the category. Now, we should not misunderstand saying that means being born as a woman or being born as a Shudra or a Vaishya is a low birth. That's not the context which Krishna is saying. We need to understand. Okay? It's about what disposition they have, actually, the opportunity to develop that disposition. Disposition means that mindset or the dedicated time they have for sitting and cultivating this knowledge to be able to practice Krishna consciousness, to be able to. They, relatively speaking, they didn't in Vedic times. Again, as I'm saying, it's not at all applicable now. If you take a count in this room, there are more Matajis than Prabhujis actually. And Prabhupada says it's always the case. ISKCON will always have more Matajis because Prabhupada says they have the natural serving tendency, so they will become better devotees than, there are quotes actually of Prabhupada. Women will become better devotees than men, Prabhupada says. Men has that Ishvara Bhav, women naturally have the serving tendency, so it's very easy for them to accept Krishna. So it's in this context which Krishna is actually saying that Tepisyu Papa Yonaya. Okay, so we should not misunderstand what Krishna is saying. So Krishna is saying accidental fall downs also is accepted. They can also go back to spiritual world by practicing Bhakti Yoga. Or even someone whose lifestyle is also doesn't favor cultivation of Krishna consciousness, doesn't matter. If they simply take up through this process of chanting, they also can go back to spiritual world. Okay, 33. How much more this is so for the righteous Brahmanas, the devotees and the saintly kings. Now even women can become Brahmanas also in our movement. Therefore, having come to this temporary miserable world, if you look at the translation, or rather the Sanskrit there, it's Anityam Ashukam. It's exactly same as Ashashvatam Dukalayam. It's just a synonym. Okay, Anityam means temporary. Ashashvatam is also temporary. We saw that same thing in the previous chapter also. Ashukam, miserable. Dukalayam is also miserable. So instead of saying Dukalayam Ashashvatam, which Krishna said, here he is saying Anityam Ashukam. It's just a synonymous term there. Okay? Imam Prapya Bhajasvamam. How much more, therefore, having come to this temporary miserable world, engage in loving service unto me. And finally, Krishna concludes this chapter by saying, engage your mind always in thinking of me, become my devotee, offer obeisances to me and worship me. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. The same verse Krishna will also repeat in 18th chapter. But the last two lines, there will be a slight variation, but the meaning is exactly the same. This verse, in the opinion of many acharyas, they call 934 as the essence of the Bhagavad Gita. This is essence of Gita. 1866, that's the conclusion of Gita. Okay? All right, we'll finish here. Questions? Yes. Yes. Worshipping Krishna means it's in mode of transcendence. It's beyond the three modes. Okay, because if we are afflicted by any of the lower modes, we'll be going for any one of them. So the very fact that somebody is coming to Krishna, worshipping Krishna means it's in mode of transcendence.
Now, when you say about sisters
Sorry, say that again. Yeah, if you go to South India, people worship Swarg Prapt ho gaya as soon as somebody dies. Now, he may be a number one robber, but if you go to the home, you will still see a picture. They put mala and they worship.
That's everywhere in India.
Yeah, so that's the point. So that's worshiping forefathers.
So we should not. That's not really worship. That's as a respect to something.
Yeah. If that's what I'm saying, consciousness matters. There are many places where they worship them as gods. Okay. Yes. Anyone else? Hare Krishna Prabhuji, what do the devotees that pray universal form lack in principle from a pure devotee of Krishna? The form they worship the Supreme Lord in. Absolutely. Because it's a good question. The question here is, we are saying somebody who accepts the supremacy of the Lord, he is in mode of transcendence. How are they any different to somebody worshipping universal form? Because they also see Krishna in universal form. One fundamental difference is, universal form is actually material. They don't have the knowledge about the existence of soul. They don't understand the knowledge of what Krishna's body is made of. Okay, so the knowledge of the soul, that matters actually there. Second, they confined the existence of the Supreme Lord only to this material world. They don't have no idea about Krishna's supreme nature. They have no idea about Goloka Vrindavan. They have no idea about spiritual world at all. That's the difference. If Krishna has created, this is second one, Hare Krishna Prabhu, if Krishna has created this material world and heavenly planets for Jiva sense enjoyment, then why it is created such that ultimately one dies? Good question. Because otherwise, imagine if somebody goes to heavenly kingdom, and that's it. He just stays there perpetually. When will he go to Goloka Vrindavan? The whole point of material world is, it's supposed to be a correction center. So, everyone who goes to the correction center at some point, we have this experience, even in this life, right? You will work in a job, and you may not have managed your time, your career properly when you are in one job. However, when you are now looking to change job, you will always have this feeling, yes, when I go to the next job, I'll do things properly. All of us have experience. Students, all of us have experience. You know, when at the end of the semester, especially when your exam is next day, you will think, why did I waste my time? Especially you come across a section which is so important and it's so easy to study. Why haven't I studied this before? All right, from next semester onwards, I'll actually study from day one. How many of you have this experience? Yeah, thank you. So now you apply the same principle for your life. In our life also, we will think, now I'm 38, I'm thinking, why didn't I start this early? Okay, now if I'm actually towards the end of my life, and if I know I have another life, I will think, at least from next life I should chant properly, I should memorize verses properly. It's the same mentality. So Krishna is understanding that same human psychology, so he's giving that opportunity. All right, die, at least start fresh. Yes, I'll finish that and come, okay? Having love of Krishna in heart and engaging your senses to speak about Krishna's glories is a characteristic of a pure heart wanting to help people? Absolutely. We may have ulterior motives. We may even want to show off. Doesn't matter. Somehow, start somewhere. We'll get purified that way. Nandan Prabhu.
Krishna says that to understand this, we need to have that mercy and the blessings as well as not have envy.
Yep.
Because with envy, there's like the more obvious
Yep.
characteristics. There's also the very subtle and artwork. Can you explain like that process of understanding?
Good question. So his question is, envy is so subtle and it's so prominent. The very fact we are in this material world means we are envious of Krishna. Okay? Wherever there is lust, there is going to be envy. All of us have lust, all of us have envy. So the question is, how can we get rid of that envy and qualify ourselves to come to accept this knowledge, to come to realize this knowledge? Initially, we have to force ourselves. When we read Nectar of Instruction, we'll actually see that Prabhupada gives this example. It's in a verse in Nectar of Devotion, Nectar of Instruction. For a person afflicted with jaundice, yellow fever, for him, anything he tastes sweet will actually turn bitter. If he takes the sugar candy, Prabhupada says, he will actually taste bitterness only. However, it's the same sweet that is the cure for jaundice. He has to keep on eating sweets. And then at one point, the same bitterness will give rise to sweetness. That means the sickness is cured. So, yes, unless we are free of envy, we can't really come and realize this knowledge and live this scriptures. However, just like how a patient will still, despite the bitterness, he will force himself to eat, similarly, still we make time to come and attend scripture study class. Still, we set aside 2-3 hours in the home to sit and go through. At least, okay, let me at least finish it. I may not take everything. As a matter of duty, at least let me practice bhakti. There will come a point when what we are forcing ourselves to do, we would love to do spontaneously. So that takes patience. Again, we'll study that in Nectar of Instruction. After we finish Bhagavad Gita, we'll be studying Nectar of Instruction. So there, Rupa Goswami gives us practical steps how we can actually practice, how from wherever we are, we can actually climb up the ladder and we come to pure devotional service. It's there. Okay, we'll finish here. Okay, last question. Do who give the knowledge? If they ask, there are instances. For example, Dhruva Maharaj, at one point, he engages in a fight with the Yakshas. Yaksha's king is Kuvera, who is the treasurer of all demigods. He defeats them, and at one point, Dhruva Maharaj is a great Mahabhagavat. He picks up Narayanastra, which can practically wipe out the entire race. So when he's about to invoke the mantra to do that, Kuvera comes and he stops. Actually, Brahma comes and the Brahmanas ask them to stop, and then Brahma and then Kuvera also comes. And Kuvera becomes pleased that he could have wiped out, but he stopped. So then Kuvera asks for a boon, or rather tells Dhruva Maharaj to ask for a boon. Dhruva Maharaj, interestingly, there he says, please give me unflinching faith and devotional service to the Supreme Lord. And Kuvera says, Tatastu. So whoever asks for bhakti to the demigods, they will get bhakti, even from demigods. They are authorized to give. But if they go, we saw example of Vallabhacharya in the past one also, we saw example of Chandidas and everyone. So demigods are endowed with that capacity, but usually they don't go to demigod. Demigod worshippers, people go primarily to get, even if you see Prachetas, they worship Shiva, Shiva comes and gives the mantra, they chant and they see the Supreme Lord. So it's like that. So the option is there, usually they don't. Okay, to drive in, 2 kilometers per second, you don't need a Ferrari, basically. They don't go and worship a demigod for that, actually. They want some material desire for that, they actually go. Okay, one quick announcement. On 3rd of March, which is next Sunday, we are having a festival, all congregation get together, Bhakti Sangam. It's an inaugural event. We plan to run this event every 6 months. Moving forward. So for this year, the first event will be on 3rd of March at 9:30 in Baden-Powell Center. The details are there in the notice board. I've stick the posters all around that area. So outside, if you go, you will actually see. Please do make time to come. So this is the first time we are running. We are getting the entire congregation. We expect at least 200, 250, maybe 300. We don't know. It's a huge place, the one we have. There are kids activities. You can bring your kids also, so they'll be taken care properly. So 9:30, Sri Prahlad Prabhu will be leading Kirtan. One of the last Kirtans will be able to hear from him, and he'll give a short talk. And after that, we are going to have a series of presentations about the different initiatives we have taken to take our yatra forward. We'll also be sharing how each one of you can actually come and contribute. You will come to know what are all opportunities you have to put your hand up. And towards the end of the presentation, we'll also have a different booth set up for each of the different departments. You can go talk to the different team leads to get an idea. You can register yourself, so on and so forth. We'll have a break at 11 o'clock to serve finger food and a drink. And around 1:30, we'll be serving the lunch as well. So it's a family fun day. Because it's the first time, it will be more presentations. But our plan is, from next time onwards, we'll maybe invite some sannyasi guests. We can have Kirtan Mela there. So many things we can actually do there. We can have presentations, culturals, kids activities, which we'll have now, but like performances and everything. But this time, this is the first time. Please be part of the history. And it's very important that everyone be present here or in Mayapur TV, whoever. Please do make time to come. It's at 9:30. Details are there in our website. They are in Facebook. If you come to the temple, check the notice board. They are here. Okay? Thank you. We'll finish here. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki. Shri Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagavan ki. Samaveda Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki. Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande. Sorry, I took more time today because this is most confidential knowledge. I promise we won't take